Ken Rosenthal reporting moments ago that Jose Bautista has agreed to terms with the Toronto Blue Jays on a one-year contract with a 2018 mutual option. Now, the deal is pending a physical with an official announcement set to come from the Jays later this week. We're going to go in-depth on Bautista right now. We have Ben Nicholson-Smith with me in studio. We have Davidi on the phone, and we're going to break down Bautista's, reported return to Toronto. So, Ben, I want to start with you. You and I have been chatting about this over the last couple of days. It's finally done. Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, here it is. And I just think that to get Bautista on a one-year deal has some upside for the Blue Jays. And with the mutual option, rarely do you see those exercised. This gives both sides a little bit of flexibility going forward. But, you know, if you had said a year ago that Bautista would be back on a one-year deal, I think a lot of people would have been surprised. And it certainly took a long, winding path to get to this point. But right now, he's back, and he makes the Blue Jays lineup stronger.
Shai joining us on the phone as well. Shai Davidi, of course, Sportsnet Baseball insider. Shai, your thoughts on Bautista's return to Toronto?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things that Ben said. You know, the total guarantee is going to end up around $18 million in some way, shape, or somewhere around there, I'm told. We're still going to find out whether there's some buyouts or anything tied into the mutual options. But, really, I think the Blue Jays are going to be looking at this as both sides are going to be looking at this as a one-year deal. And, you know, the Blue Jays tried a number of different avenues to bolster their lineup. None of them worked out. You know, you look at what's left at this point. Bautista is far and away the best offensive player on the market. You can argue he's been one of the best offensive players all winter long, but it took a while for them to get to him. But now there is a reunion here. He's definitely going to help this Blue Jays team. And if he's anywhere between what he was last year and what he was in 2015, if there's some slight upgrade from him at the plate, then the Blue Jays are going to make off very well in this transaction.
Shai, I want to ask you about the piece you put up on Sportsnet.ca today. On paper, of course, this looks very feel-good. Bautista becomes a star in Toronto. He returns to them in free agency. But it's not really all that rosy, and looking at it from that lens really misses some of the context, doesn't it?
Well, I think the path here hasn't been the logical one. We saw the Blue Jays make an aggressive early charge at Edwin Encarnacion and Brett Cecil, and then they went after Kendrys Morales and Steve Pearce, and then they tried to sign Dexter Fowler, and then they looked at a bunch of different trade options, and then they got to Jose Bautista. So this isn't necessarily a match made in heaven, but it is one that's been made by, you know, the realities of the market and, you know, a leveraged position. So it is interesting in that way. Whether that's a dynamic that presents itself at any point, we'll find out. Business can sometimes really get in the way of relationships, but look, if the Blue Jays are successful and Jose Bautista is productive, then all things are going to be forgiven, and Bautista will have the potential to return to market in a much stronger position next year.
Ben, I want to ask you, again, with the one-year deal and the mutual option, who is this deal more beneficial for, the Blue Jays or Bautista himself?
You know, it does have a chance to benefit both sides, even though it's not what a lot of people would have expected. I think when you have a mutual option, it can benefit the team. And we saw this last offseason, and the Cubs did this with Dexter Fowler. What you can do is you can create a buyout that can defer a little bit of money. That way the player still gets the guarantee, but the team is able to create flexibility in the short term. So I do wonder if that's something the Blue Jays look at doing here to make sure that they can meet their many other needs.
Now, Bautista, of course, one of the all-time Blue Jays. As you look at a chart of, we had a chart up there of his time in Toronto and what he's done so far. He's climbing up the rankings in terms of all the offensive categories. Shai, it was a bit of a down year for him offensively last season, but again, there's a chance for this to provide some real good value offensively. We'll start with the offense side. We'll talk about defense in a sec, but there's some good chance for some value here offensively, isn't there?
Sure. I think you have to consider the fact that, you know, he fought through a turf toe injury, which can be very painful and very limiting in terms of a player's performance. Then he had the knee injury, and also, obviously, the knee is critical in any player's swing. So, I mean, those are two difficult injuries. You know, there's 2 DL stints in there, which really prevent the player from getting into any sort of rhythm across the season. You know, that's obviously going to limit somebody's production or challenge it. So if Jose Bautista stays healthy, he can certainly upgrade on those numbers, on the performance. And even if last year is what he was, we have to look at that and say, he's still a very productive player with 800 plus OPS, and if you rate it over, say, 600 ABs, you're in the neighborhood of 30 homers, 100 RBIs, and 100 runs scored, which certainly anybody would take.
Absolutely. In fact, over the last 7 years in baseball, there's nobody with more home runs than Jose Bautista. He certainly has the ability to hit the big home run at the big time, as Jays fans have seen in the playoffs and other key games as well. Sentiment-wise, this is obviously nothing but positive for Blue Jays, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it comes on the heels of what was a really difficult signing for Blue Jays fans when Edwin Encarnacion ended up going to Cleveland. That was a really tough blow. This one might not make up for that, but Bautista, as you said, is just such a well-known figure here. He's just an integral part of Blue Jays history at this point. You look at the bat flip, you look at everything that he's done, and now there's an outside chance that he'll end up with 300 home runs in a Blue Jays uniform by the end of this year.